Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You are joining me for the round 10 review, which we're going to try and blast through as quickly as possible so we can watch Oscar Piastri convert that front row Monaco qualifier into hopefully a podium. Even a win would be amazing, but I think, well, hopefully Charles gets it because he's deserved it. But look, I'd be very happy if Oscar got up. Be very, very happy, actually, if he got his maiden win outside of a sprint race. But let's talk some SuperCoach first. We've got to get this done. So I scored a 23.38, which put me up just under 500 spots, which is nice to go up. That's good. We'd take those. I thought I had an okay week, neither here nor there. Look, we're going to jump into it, but I missed the Flanders news. No one pinged me, yada, yada, yada. And it's probably the first time like I've genuinely had like the full hour in the lead up where I just wasn't able to get to a device and check things myself. So yeah, pretty painful in the end. Maybe in some ways good, because I probably would have fielded this Dempsey 28 over the Darcy 42, but it would have meant that I would have looped Clark on instead of this call. So actually, look, it's probably as is. I ended up slightly ahead, but still frustrating. I didn't see the news beforehand to get a chance to react. Outside of that, my vice captain this week wasn't particularly great going the merit option. I toyed around with Zorko C, which I'm glad I dodged, but I also toyed around with Gawn C, which I missed. So it's funny. It's like, Zorko C is like 55 points the wrong way and Gawn 60 points the right way. So I kind of ended up in the middle. I think a lot of people had like these Dacos Ryan types, which are perfectly good VCC scores. And just checking in on that, I'll just share this quickly. So this is my spreadsheet tracking my rookie roulette and captains for the year. I like doing this just to get an idea for where I'm doing well or poorly. I think it's nice to check just before the buys as well, where things go a little bit weird. But part of the reason why I started tracking the rookie roulette was I had this like feeling that rookies in SuperCoach are much more punishing than that in fantasy, and this has kind of been true. So up until this point, I've lost nearly 400 points in rookies on SuperCoach and under 200 for fantasy. And all I'm doing here is looking at, I can show you this week, but if I'd fielded my team optimally from a rookie perspective, not including mid-price premiums, all that type of stuff, would I have gained or lost extra points? So I could have not fielded Darcy's 42 this week and got Clark on instead, and that would have been 43-point difference. So I had one mistake worth 43 points this week. And yeah, so tallying up total mistakes, I've made a couple more mistakes in SuperCoach than fantasy, but the average point size is like, it's so much more. It's more than 50% extra in SuperCoach. You just get punched way harder because of the variance that SuperCoach scoring brings in. So a few more mistakes, but then like the value of those mistakes is so much higher and just leads up to this crazy total. Okay. And then on the captains here, I've been pretty good with captains. I've only had one score below 110, which was the Gawn last week, the 109, which was a soft matchup, and he didn't pull out the big score. And then this week he did. So I've got the wrong side of that pretty badly. Actually, I think I've missed a lot of the Gawn big scores and copped a lot of the poorer ones. But still averaging over 130, which is in like I think any given year pretty good. But I'm sure there's some that have like 140 averages, so probably still down a little bit on the pack, or at least like the really good captainers this year. Anyway, I like to do this just to keep myself accountable on some of those decisions I've been making. All right, so trades last week. We should probably talk about those before we jump into anything else. I was weighing up a few options for what I do with my one up, one down, but I did get rid of Wilson, who had a really good week this week, for Richards, who was a great rookie and actually outscored Wilson. And then we had Graham come in for Houston, and I think I picked up Houston for his poorest score of the year against North of all teams. So love that for me, love that. But goodbye. So that works out well. 82k left, and we've now got the extra trades this week. We'll blast through my team, how it went as a whole, and then we'll talk a little bit about some strategy, what trades I'm looking at, some captain, vice captain, and we'll wrap this up so we can get ready for Oscar Piastri Masterclass. So going through defense, Ryan continues to be pretty good. I know as a non-owner, he's a painful watch, but I think he's been pretty good this year. And with Clark getting the attention over him, I think that only benefits him. This D's matchup, I don't love. The Dogs matchup after that is okay. But yeah, he's been good buy. I mean, not much else to say. Dacos definitely back in good form. One of the things I mentioned early on is that he looked like he was carrying something in those kind of early rounds, and his tackling numbers were down, but they continue to be up, and he just looks so much more like himself from last year. So every week VCC option for sure with Dacos. Back up to a 1/120 average, which is cool. Houston, yeah, I mean, I didn't get to watch a ton of this game. That was part of the, I was out, couldn't adjust to the changes. Yeah, no good. So he's kicked that game winner, I think, on Carlton last time and scored a 176, which probably overinflates what his true average against them is. Hopefully get a bounce back game though. It should be more ball down back. Not that he necessarily plays down back. Sheasel, interesting one. So a couple of weeks ago, if I had a boost, I probably could have seen myself boosting him out. But then last week had the injury, moved back into half back and scored well. And then this week moved onto the ball properly, none of that half forward stuff. And he had 88% CBAs and looked good doing it from the reports that I have read. So I think he's just someone that we keep now, and hopefully he continues to perform well in the midfield role. West Coast and Collingwood after the buys. Sorry for the colour scheme. West Coast and Collingwood after the buys should be all right. So I think he's just a hold, should still be a top 6 defender. Martin, okay. Probably expected more against Richmond, but 97's fine. Look, if your D6 for the year ends up being a 106, then you're pretty happy with that. And then Closey, we had to field because of no McKercher, and we'll take a 71. His break-even's up around 77 now. So look, he's someone that you could trade. I'm probably not in a position where I can. And he has St Kilda in a couple of weeks, which might be okay. In the most likely scenario, I just hold Closey until he's buy, unless he drops a real stinker this week. But we may lose a little bit of cash from here. McKercher sounds like he's more likely than not to be back first game after the bye. So I think I'll just persist with holding him. And then, having him play through the last couple of buys, making a little bit more money, hopefully getting over to 400k. And if he can't keep up those tons, then we'll just move him on to another premium. And Reed apparently didn't look very good in the 2. So I think unless like an injury happens to Laverty or Mackay, we're actually not getting Reed back for the buys, which is a bit of a shame. I thought he would have been straight back in, and the fact that he's not is a bit of a surprise. But yeah, hopefully building his fitness and some form. In the midfield, Butters is good. Bont is good. Dawson, very good. He crushed that game. It's not really anything to discuss on these. Butters got tagged a little bit in the first half and wasn't on for a particularly good game. I think he kicked a couple of goals to save him and then performed well in the second half. Bont did what he could in their game to get the Dogs over the line. It's just captain's effort every week for him. And then, Dawson led from the front on this one, which is good. I wonder if they've got his CBAs and what that tally was. I wasn't really paying that much attention to it, but with ranking out, it's obviously a little bit interesting what happens. So they've moved in Rochelle for 48%. We should probably check his score. Sligo got managed. So he got subbed at halftime. And I assume Berry took a lot of those CBAs. Dawson just the 41%. No, what are they doing to my boy? Oh no, they're going to keep playing him out of position. I would have thought that had ticked up. So really tricky for non-owners. What do you do here? Because he's up to 627k, and he's put together a whole bunch of these really good scores now, with not that many CBAs. Almost reminiscent of Petrarca last year, and he's got Hawks and Richmond as his next 2 matchups, which are nice. Wouldn't want to be in the position of trying to decide if you bring him in or not. I guess it might come down to what your buy structure looks like. Merritt, I think, is probably outperforming the position he's played. I think his CBAs are still good without having looked at them. Yep, up there in the high 80s as well, but playing it feels like quite a selfless role, which hasn't been great. Now, Gold Coast are actually pretty tough for Mints to score against, and he's got them this week despite having a good history. And then Carlton are really tough after that and may get a Hewitt tag. So I don't think I'd be bringing in Merritt this week if you don't own. Just quietly. Oliver started off slow and kind of came good over the back end of this game. Just feels like he's 15-20% below what his best is. Maybe the post buy after another rest, he'll really look a lot better, but we'll just see on that one. If he ends up being M8, whatever, but I'm probably going to try and get an M9, in which case he'd be getting looped most weeks anyway. Although with that said, Tom Green desperately needs this buy. He's not scored well in ages. It's actually like funny. If you don't own him, what do you do next week? Do you actually bring him in? But sub 500k, I think I'd suggest you probably have to. No, you not have to, but like it's just, once again, if you're gonna have extra bench cover, then sub 500k for Tom Green is just crazy. He's got ceiling. Fife has not been good for me. He's looking very slow, and I think teams have kind of figured out what to do, which is put attention or put work into him at a stoppage, which has been happening, and then after that, you can let him run around the ground. It doesn't really matter because Freo don't use him, and he doesn't really kick. So even if you hit him with a nice kick in the middle, it's not like he's going to turn around and open up the ground for Freo. Against the D's this week, I could see Clary being put on him and not a whole lot of defense work being done. But yeah, this is frustrating. This is really frustrating. I think I probably just hold him at this point just because of the good buy and figuring out when I trade him out later, but annoying. And look, like the rest next week should be good for him, so maybe more inclined to hold than not. McAuliffe actually, I think it looked pretty good against Essendon. Interesting for like non-owners if you bring him in this week. The Geelong midfield has not been particularly good, so like I think there's a chance that he can score okay in this game. We'll see. Dempsey, I got to trade this week. I'm in 28. Oh, I don't. He's got Richmond though. He's got Richmond though. Oh, but his break even's going to be crazy bad, isn't it? 76. That's not terrible. He could do a 76. All right, Dempsey might be a hold. We'll see. Yeah, Garcia, we hope comes back soon. Jai Clark got suspended. He got an 85 and got suspended. Man, Jai Clark, just the biggest roller coaster. And against a Richmond matchup too, which easiest mid matchup in the game at the moment. Like, could have actually made some more money, brother. What are we doing? And then so he's got suspension, and then I think he's got the bye, and then, oh no, he's got the Sydney game, then the bye, and then Carlton. And I think after that, like, he might be back to the twos. We'll see. Rucks are okay this week, actually. 100's not amazing, but I think it actually beat Meek and Marshall for a change. So take that, I guess. Sweet 74, I think the challenge is he probably gets dropped this week. So he's got more money to make, but if Soldo's fit and healthy and he's played his last game, then I don't know, maybe we just trade him on. He's made 150k, which is good, but I've had to stuff around with my rucks, which is really bad. So yeah, I mean, rookie rucks continue. If they are the solo ruck, they continue to be a cheat code for making money. But just like the risk that you bring with mucking around with your ruck line is always a tough one. So we'll see. Hopefully, he gets one more game. I'd like him to get one more game before he's bye. And then forward line, yeah, he's good. Zorko, big lol. What? Like, I think I don't know where I mentioned it. Maybe it was in the live with me and Anna, but like 616 for Zorko, where he's injury prone. He's probably near his top price. It's like so hard to do. But if you told me he only scored 66, I would have said he got injured, not that he just had a really poor game. So this is, massive surprise. I think he was on like 0 at quarter time or something ridiculous. So the like 66 from the rest of the game is not great, but it's not terrible. So what do you do as a non-owner now? Do you plan to bring him in against Dogs around 13? I'd say probably not. Like I let's have a look at his break even. Where is it? It's 128 against the Dogs. So yeah, I think you just watch that game. If he does look really good, then bring him in for the Saints. But otherwise, you could just wait a little bit for him to sort some other things. Yeah, Flanders was ill, hence having to take some of these scuff scores, but he should be back and fine. And then Fisher, very good. He's made like 100k in 2 weeks and dropped like 116, 113. He's made over 100k. He's made 110k. This is what I was expecting from the start of the year, young fish. So happy with that. Baker. Oh, he returned this week. The return of the king. And he continues to have really good CBA numbers from watching that game. Where are you, Baker? Yep. He's had his 2 highest CBA games, 79, 62%. Just happened to miss a couple of games in the middle. And I got a 60 and a 72 from those games. Let's go. Actually looked okay. And once again, he also, his first quarter was non-existent. Felt like he scored this in 3 quarters. He just does some of the small chisel kicks that like a Whitfield gets punished for. And Nick Martin gets punished for those types of kicks where like those short kicks that are precise and potentially really useful for your team just don't get scored well by a SuperCoach or champion data, because if they come off, they're still less points than kicking to a long 50-50 contest. And if they don't come off, they get penalised more heavily than long kicks that are inefficient. So, yeah, a bit of that going on. Also, like some undisciplined, like frees and stuff he gave away, which is part of what he does. Anyway, so yeah, this is very frustrating. Very frustrating. I like just have a look as well at the scores. It's pretty funny. So 140, 93, 97, 95. And then I traded him for 60, laid out with a corky, out again, 72. Ooh, nice. All right, Richards, very good. We like Richards. And then yeah, Darcy, he's probably time to go. Break even 95. Look, with the way he's been up and down, he might actually be able to do that against Collingwood. But I think happy to cash him in this week. All right, so philosophy, and then we'll talk some trades. Look, every Premio that you are trading in still has a buy to come, is effectively the problem. So in general, this week, upgrading to premiums can work, but it's probably just aiming for the later guys. Fixing zeros or like restructuring your team to get red dots off, so like your Garcia types potentially make sense and get some cash gen in, and also like load up on the bank so you can start trading in guys coming off the bye next week. So it could be Zorko if you're interested, it could be Heaney if you still don't have them, it could be a Goulden, it could be a Fisher. Those types are what you should be trying to think about. Oh, Green as well, we mentioned Green. Whitfield, but I probably wouldn't be going Whitfield at the moment. So yeah, like don't feel like you have to use all three trades this week as well, especially if your team's in a good spot. But for someone like me, I could see myself moving on. Dempsey, maybe. Darcy, like Fife doesn't fill me with confidence, but I need to have someone worth trading into, which I'll look at. The other part that is challenging this week is that the downgrades just really aren't there for us. I don't think there's any rookies on the bubble that we actually want to dive into. Vicentini and Moyle aren't playing. They didn't play. Aaliyah is an interesting one. He was really big in that game. I don't know who he's holding out, actually. I need to go have a look at that. And he's got a negative 54 break even. So maybe one you could consider at the 190k, but on buy this week. So maybe next week. Dawson, yeah, potentially as well. He's still at that bottom price, and he's job security might be okay. Coming off of 79. Going early on him this week feels a little bit sketchy, though. But maybe one to consider for next week, especially if we don't get any like new debutants this week. I think you could still go on Richards and Fraser if you miss them. So I've missed Fraser, one that I have to consider this week. The only risk with Fraser was that he moved forward in the second half, and I'm not sure if it was because of Richards' concussion or some other reason, but like that does have me a little bit nervous as to where he is going to play kind of going forward. Morris had a decent game, but it's on the on the bye. McMullen has this, like, he's had 2 scores that have been okay from very low time on ground as a sub, but he's on bye. And then McCaleb, we talked about, another one that you could consider. I'm a little bit worried about his job security with Hopper and Taranto both being back in the next 0 to 2 to 3 weeks. I think they'll both definitely be back after his bye. If he made it through to his bye, then that's great. It's probably all you need. But one to consider. Sexton, I probably still wouldn't go on, especially if you didn't jump on him last week. He's already gone up another 57k, so I don't think that's one that you would touch. And that's it. Like, there's really not much. Like, the cupboards are proper bare for this one. So what do you do? Do you go down to a Dawson type if you're looking for a cheap guy? It means you've got no cheap guys next week unless McMullen comes through. Otherwise, you're looking at probably jumping on a McAuliffe, a Richards, or a Fraser if you don't have one of those. And that's about it. Now, for trade-ins, you definitely got to have an eye to who do you think's like best 22, best 23 here for the rest of the year. In my forward line, I think like Rankin looks like someone that could be. I mean, I might try and go like a Kerno type as well, or like a Luke Jackson if Darcy goes down, and push Baker to someone that's looping, potentially Fisher as well, the def forward, so I can cover both lines. In my defense here, I'm not really sure who I'm missing. I mean, McGovern's obviously been good, but for the same reason I haven't picked him up to this point, I will continue not to pick him up, which is I just don't think he lasts the season. For anyone that started him, it doesn't matter. You've already done the damage. Oh, you had Ridley. People are going to ask about Ridley. They played the softest matchup and they just let him play +1 behind the ball. He's missed the whole like half a year. I'm not jumping on this pick. I would definitely wait to see at least this week against Gold Coast. But yeah, Gold Coast Carlton next two. I'm not loving that. I'm not loving that. So, yeah, I think I'd still even wait like to after his bye. I don't. I wouldn't be going on him. Yeah, McGovern I wouldn't touch. Yo had a pretty poor game. I mean, he might come down price. Clark's obviously looked really good this year, but copped attention. I think the Frio like run is pretty good for the same reason that Ryan's is. But I've already got Ryan and Houston, so I don't think I could go him. And then beyond that, it drops off. I mean, yeah, Whitfield's going to be cheap. Young's still kind of cheap. Sicily's kind of come back a little bit. He's had a couple of good games now. Otherwise, we're like Richards, I guess we could consider as well after he comes back from concussion and then probably his buy and drops a little bit of money. He might end up being reasonably cheap. Yeah. And then mids is the other one I've got to figure out. So I think players that I'm missing from here that are obviously good would be Sarong. And then Rao's been high score as well. So Sarong and Rao as like potential options here. And then I think Goulden with his high time on ground has got to be someone that you consider after the bye. Like Walsh has been good, but I'm not enamored with the pick. Yeah. If like you didn't already grab him. Neil's been good, but I probably wouldn't go there. Coming out his by Dunkley's like an okay option as well. Trelaw's obviously been good, but I don't think I'd touch. And Warner's been in a real hot patch of form. Not sure I'd be jumping on him at 6'10". Steele, I won't be going near. And Petrarca's cheap. Petrarca's cheap. I still think he could turn that around. Oh, Noah Anderson's going to get very cheap. Oh, far out. 55. That's brutal. And what's Goulden? That 535. That's really cheap as well. So I think that's one you could consider next week. LDU is interesting. He's had a decent month-ish now, I want to say. Yeah, like out of his last six, there's only one sub ton. I don't know if I trust it though. These next couple of matchups are good. And then let's have a look because I think the one that made most sense to me was probably Rao. Where is he? Is he still? I mean, yeah, he's top 8 once you remove some of these others. Caleb, I probably won't look at just because the buy next week probably makes more sense to target after, and he should have a high-ish break even now. And there's also like over 100k difference. Rao's got a 101 break even. Essendon's been getting beaten at clearances the last couple of weeks. So I could see this being decent and then Saints after. Okay. So let's have a look. If we trade out Darcy, we need to get a forward in there. And then so for Rao, I need to free up another 93k. So it could be Fife out, which I want to. It could be Dempsey out, but I like that Richmond matchup. So what do I do there? Or it could be Sweet out as well. So this is the other one. If Sweet gets dropped this week, he could be just straight out. So maybe I do something like this. I get in Fraser. It doesn't leave me a ton of money, but yeah, Darcy and Sweet out for Rao and Fraser, assuming that Sweet's out. Have Dempsey play one more week into the soft matchup. Could be risky though. But like it's just such a friendly matchup. Tigers looked good though. They brought it to us for sure. And then let's optimize. Let's get some optimization going on. Thank you. It's probably the most useful it gets is during the buys because it just pulls everyone off for you that isn't going to play. So looking at that, do I have 20? I basically have 22. The problem is that Clark isn't going to play, so that's off. And I'd rather like see a blue dot than get false hope. In the forward line, Gussie's not going to play either. So let's get another one off. Get rid of the false hope. So that's 20. That's okay. People ask how many is a good amount. I would try and aim for at least 20 each week. I think the buys are pretty easy to manage this year, especially with all the trades we've got. Getting from 18 to 19 is huge value. Going from 19 to 20 is diminishing, but still good value. From 20 plus, like 2021 still good, 21, 22 is still good, but you just get diminishing returns. So I'd be trying to aim for at least 20 each week, especially in the later rounds, and you should be checking to make sure your team can cover that. If you can't, I think you may give up some points, but of course it depends on the strength of the last players on your field as well. McAuliffe isn't exactly a world beater. Fraser could drop a stinker. Dempsey could drop a stinker. So like this, like even though I got to 20, it's not as good as someone that has 19 but 2 extra primo. So you got to weigh all that stuff up. But yeah, I think aiming for 20 is the guidance I would give people this week. All right, and then the last thing for me to figure out is vice captain. And I think, as I mentioned, Dacos is like an every week vice captain at the moment, vice captain or captain. Now, I think Bont against Collingwood also would be a decent option, but then I've got to pick between the two, which is tough. What's his track record like against them? 123, 125, 92 in the last 3. So not exactly amazing scores there. Dacos had a 139 his last outing against the Dogs. So it's probably a Dacos vice captain. I don't think I'd be touching Butters against Carlton. And then, yeah, maybe it's just Dawson C against the Hawks. He does not have a good track record against them. He has not gone above 80 in the last 3. Wow. So maybe I reconsider that. But who would I reconsider it to? I'm not sure. No, Melbourne's not that friendly. It could be like a Ryan captain backup, which is, I feel like he's asking for disaster, but we'll see. All right, so that's the team. That's where we're at this week. I've been slack on getting back to people's questions, but if you hit me up below, I will try and respond to them this week best we can. Time pending with all the other commitments going on, but as always, nice chatting to you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.